We are continuing with Caleb's story, starting with chapter 5. When we left off on chapter 4, Papa had just found out that his dad had come to visit him. From an upstairs window, Cassie and I watched Sarah and Papa talking outside. I had never seen Papa so upset. Maybe once before, when he was afraid Sarah might not stay and marry him. But that had been a long time ago. "Papa's mad," said Cassie. She leaned against me. "No, Cassie, he's upset. He thought his father was dead. Why isn't he glad to see him?" Cassie looked up at me. "Where has grandfather been?" I smiled at how natural the words grandfather came to Cassie. I shook my head. "I don't know." "Maybe he was lost," said Cassie. "Maybe." "That's what happened," said Cassie firmly. "He was lost." She watched Sarah talking to Papa. Papa stood silent, not even looking at her. "Will everything be all right?" Cassie asked at last. She sounded so sad. "Everything will be fine," I said. "You'll see." "I like grandfather," Cassie said after a moment. Cassie left, and I knew she was going downstairs to ask grandfather more questions. "I like grandfather too," I said out loud in the empty room. "I do." Outside, Sarah reached out and put her arms around Papa. But after a moment, Papa walked off to the barn, leading Bess. Sarah stood still for a moment. Then she pulled her coat around her and followed Papa into the barn. I could hear Cassie's voice down in the kitchen, going on and on like the wind. Sometimes grandfather would say something, his voice low, his sentences short. Slowly I walked down the stairs and into the kitchen. "I'm almost 4.5 years, you know," said Cassie. "You told me that," said grandfather. "I was born here." "So was I," said grandfather grumpily. "And I was very little," said Cassie. "I was little," said grandfather. Cassie took a breath. "I was very little, so little," said Cassie, "that I had to sleep in a little box by the stove. And I ate every hour, and I cried, and I threw up." Grandfather grunted. "You win," he said. "It will be nice to know my grandfather," I said. Grandfather looked at me, his eyes so sharp and blue. He walked to the door and put on his coat. "I'm not nice," he said. "Don't go thinking that, Caleb." The kitchen door opened and Sarah came in. "Why didn't you tell me who you were?" she asked grandfather. "I didn't know if I'd be welcome," said grandfather. "You're Jacob's father," said Sarah. "Of course you are welcome." "Does Jacob welcome me?" he asked. Sarah didn't answer. She walked to the stove to pour a cup of coffee. "That's what I thought," said grandfather. He put on his hat. "Where are you going?" asked Sarah. "Taking a walk," said grandfather. "I'll go with you," said Sarah. "No," said grandfather. "I know the farm. It was once mine, you know." "I'll go," I said. "I'd like to." "Aren't you late for school?" said Sarah. "There's no school," I said. "Remember?" "Then help Jacob with the chores, Caleb." "What about me?" asked Cassie. Grandfather peered at all of us for a moment. Then he turned and went out the door. "Grandfather doesn't like us," said Cassie. "No, he doesn't," I said. Sarah sighed and walked to the window to watch grandfather walk down the road by the paddock fence. "He doesn't know you," she said softly. "He will like you." "Does he like Papa?" asked Cassie. Sarah didn't answer. "Does Papa like him?" asked Cassie. Sarah turned from the window. "Have you brushed your hair, Cassie?" "Chores, Caleb," she said briskly. I knew there wouldn't be any more questions or answers. Papa was in the barn, but he wasn't cleaning the stalls. He was standing in the open doorway looking out over the meadows and the slough filled with snow. He was also watching Grandfather walking down the road. "Papa?" Papa didn't answer me right away. "The paddock gate needs fixing," he said, his voice soft. "Papa, Cassie wonders—" I stopped as Papa looked straight at me. "Cassie wonders what?" he repeated. I took a breath. "Cassie wonders why you aren't happy to see your father, if you thought he was dead." Papa knew I was asking for me too. "Cassie's life is simple, Caleb. She thinks life is good and fair, and everyone does the right thing." We both watched Grandfather walk away down the road. "But life is good and fair," I said. "Isn't it?" Papa sighed. "Sometimes, Caleb. But sometimes people do the wrong thing." "Did Grandfather do the wrong thing?" Papa winced at the name Grandfather. It did not. "When did that happen?" "The barn and picked up his shovel," he said, his voice soft. He began to clean out the stalls, his regular rhythm, up and down, up. I mended the gate far away in the west meadow. When I went to the barn to put away the fence wire, they didn't see. "You should talk to John," said Sarah. "Perhaps, Papa." I thought it was our well and looked at Sarah. He walked away and wondered louder. Every day. That shouldn't happen to a boy." Sarah, "Tired, Jacob. Please, what does he want after all this time? Have written me a letter. Why didn't—" Papa watched me in the shadows. "I will never, never forgive him for walking," whispered Sarah. "It's well enough to go," said Papa. "You can tell him that your son—" Papa passed me. Time. Then one heard out into the winter day. Dusk came, and it was Sarah and Cassie. Papa came. Sarah shook her head out the window, his hand. "We can't eat without Grandma." Papa dried his hand. "We ate without him tonight." Oh, this was sharp. "He's our guest." "Of all things, he is not." Grandfather came in. "Sorry time." His voice trailed. Papa sat too. Grandpa, Papa. "I see you cut the ones you know?" "No, the rest of the meal." Even Cassie was quiet. The doorway of his bedroom, his oil lamp